Hello, class. This will be your study guide for your first test on Wednesday. A couple things I want to point out. Your notebook will also be due, so if you're missing anything, you can go to my Edaline page and you can click on Notes and Assignments, and you will find that everything for this unit is right here. All the class notes, all the homeworks, notebooks, study guide, the warm-ups for every day with the objectives. Everything that you could want is right there. And if you click on the notebook one right here, you will see the rubric for what I'm expecting on your notebook. So make sure that's all ready to go. So here's the study guide. Most important thing on the whole test is this three-part definition of faith that we've talked about over and over and over again. And this is in your notes number 1 on the Intro to Faith. And I said that faith is a commitment of oneself to God. It's not just believing in God, because you could say even the devil believes in God. It's a commitment of oneself to God. And what that looks like is 3 things. And this is what we talk about when we mean the 3-part definition of faith. It's knowing that God exists, believing in Him. It's loving God, having an interpersonal relationship with Him through prayer. And then serving God and living out your relationship. And a way for you to remember that is that faith is of the head, the heart, and the hands and feet. You believe in God. You have a relationship with God through prayer, and you live it out by the way you treat other people. Moving right along, be able to reconcile the following 2 statements, that 1, faith is a gift, but 2, faith is a commitment. So the reason we talk about that is because, yes, faith is a commitment, as we just talked about, and this is how you have that commitment, through these 3 ways. But before we're even able to commit ourselves to God, God has already given us the gift of faith. What do we mean by that? We mean that God gives us an ability to know Him in a way that He hasn't given that to any other animals. He hasn't given that to parrots or dogs or cats, but we're able to know Him and rationally think about Him and pray to Him in a way that other animals and other creatures are not. We were given a choice to know Him, and in our hearts we have a desire for some sort of deeper meaning, and so Christians see that as a desire to know God. So He calls us, and then we choose to answer, and that's our faith. But faith is first a gift from Him with that ability, choice, and desire to know Him. Be able to explain the following types of belief. An atheist is one who does not believe in God. An agnostic is one who doesn't know what they believe in God, or doesn't really know if God exists or not. A theist is someone who does believe in God or gods. So anyone who believes in a higher power is a theist. Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, they're all theists. A deist is someone who believes in God, but not a God who loves you or has a relationship with you, not a God that you pray to. A deist believes in a distant God who made the world a certain place, who made the world a certain way, but doesn't answer prayers, doesn't interact with you. It's not someone you would have a relationship with. And many Christians today act as if they are deists, and that's a threat for that's a kind of a temptation for a lot of Christians, is to go through life believing in God, but not really having faith in God, acting like a deist. And then a pantheist is someone who believes that everything is God and God is everything, that God, not just as Christians believe that God is in everything, but really that, God is everything. We're all just part of one big spirit. That's like a Hindu or a Buddhist belief. All right, be able to explain the terms conversion and sanctification as we use them in class. What's the difference between them? Now, I made a little mistake here. What I should have put here is the word justification. These are 2 types. These are 2 parts or 2 steps to conversion. So if you go to number 3 on the notes, the very last thing that we talked about is conversion. Here we go. A conversion is a change, and that has 2 steps. First, your justification, which is a decision to accept a new way of life. That normally happens for us Christians when we're baptized, or if we were baptized when we were a child, then it happens at confirmation, or maybe a later point in life when we accept Christ personally. But then our sanctification is that ongoing conversion, because just because you accept Christ into your life doesn't mean that you're perfect. God still has a lot of work to do with you. So the sanctification is the process of becoming the person that God wants you to be. And how this fits in with the 3 faith stages. So this would be a good time to talk about the 3 faith stages. That was we're here, so we'll talk about these 2 together. The childhood stage of faith is when you just basically believe whatever it is your parents have taught you and you don't really question it. The adolescent stage of faith is when you start to question, you're searching, you're not really sure what you believe, you're starting to question what you've been taught, and you're seeking. Towards the end of this stage of faith, when you start to kind of figure out what it is you want to believe, what sort of faith you want to have, that's where your justification takes place, when you really are like, all right, yes, this is what I want to do. You're accepting that new way of life. And then your mature stage of faith is when you're pretty secure in what you believe and you've made a commitment to live that way. Not everybody gets to the mature stage of faith. Some people kind of give up and stay in the adolescent stage. But if you keep working at it, keep searching, keep praying and studying, you'll get to that mature stage of faith. In the process of transitioning from an adolescent faith to a mature faith and growing in the mature faith, that's your sanctification. Be able to explain the proofs for the existence of God that we discussed in class. You're just going to have to be able to identify them, not really explain them. The teleological proof we're not going to do, but page 44 in your textbook will be helpful for this, and also PowerPoint 2, where we went through the cosmological proof and the moral proof. And it tells you it tells you on these slides. No, this is number 1 and 2 on page 44. I kind of combined them into one. And then the moral proof is number 4 on page 44 in your textbook, the Catholic Faith Handbook for Youth. So the cosmological proof, or the proof from causality, looks at the universe and basically asks, why is this all here? What caused all this to happen? Because we don't see anything in the universe that could have caused itself. Everything needed to have been caused by something else. So what caused it all in the first place? You know, even if you go back to the Big Bang, well, what caused the Big Bang? There has to be a first thing that caused everything, something that could move everything else that didn't need to be moved, an unmoved mover, an uncaused cause that could cause everything else but didn't need to be caused itself. And the metaphor I used in class was a divine pool player. Imagine you walked into a room and it had a pool table there and all the balls were moving around. Well, what would you think? You would think that something is causing those balls to move. There must be somebody playing pool or some sort of magnets or some sort of force, because you know that pool balls aren't the sort of things that move on their own. The cosmological proof does that same thing, draws that same conclusion, but with the universe. We look around the universe and we see nothing that can cause itself. So there has to be something making it all happen, something that could have had to start it all off at least, and that is God, according to the cosmological proof. The moral proof you can also read about in the C.S. Lewis homework that we had. Basically, it asks, why do we look at the world and think that certain things are fair, certain things are unfair, certain things are right, certain things are wrong? Why don't we just look at them and think, well, I don't like that, or that doesn't suit me? The fact that we look at the world and see that think that it should fit into some sort of just schema, it should be either just or unjust, or that there's some sort of objective measure of what's right and wrong, and that seems to match up pretty well through cultures, that there's always laws about violence and sex and marriage and family and property. The fact that there's always seems to be an agreement about this sort of thing. The moral proof draws the conclusion that there must be a higher power that is giving us that idea. So the cosmological proof looks outward at the universe and asks what the causes are. The moral proof looks inward and asks what is the cause of our understanding of the universe as just or unjust. All right. Be able to evaluate a person's faith using the 3-part definition. So basically, I'm going to write you a little story about somebody, like say his name is Joey, and I'll say, well, Joey, you know, he goes to church and he prays sometimes, but he also beats up his little sister. He also steals things sometimes. He falls asleep in church most of the time. Tell me how strong his faith is. How good is his faith using the 3-part definition? So you would go through and you would say, well, you know, he has... you know, clearly he believes in God because he goes to church and stuff, but he doesn't really have a good, here we go, this is what we're looking for. So you could say, yeah, he believes in God, but he doesn't really have a good relationship. He prays sometimes, but not that much. He falls asleep most of the time. And he doesn't really live out his relationship with God because of the way he treats other people. That's what I'm looking for you to do. That will be one of the big essays. Important scripture passages to be familiar with. These are, this one was from one of the warm-ups. This is also from one of the warm-ups. This is from PowerPoint 1. So I would suggest reading those passages over again and just kind of know them so you're able to briefly summarize them in a sentence or two, and then you answer the question that goes along with it. So Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth. And this means that Christians should do the good things for the world that salt does for food. What does salt do for food? It brings out the best in it. It brings out kind of the natural goodness of the food. So Christians should bring out the natural goodness of the world. Also, salt preserves food from going bad. It preserves it from evil. So Christians should protect the world from evil things and keep it from going bad. The greatest commandment, Jesus says the greatest commandment is to love God with all our heart, soul, and strength and our mind, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. And that's basically where we get our definition of faith. It's just our three-part definition of faith in different words. Because if you believe in God and you have a relationship with him, then you're loving him with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And if you are loving your neighbor as yourself, then that's living out your faith. That's the service part, where the hands and feet part. Mark 3, in this passage, Jesus heals a man with a withered hand, a deformed hand, and everyone who's around, especially the priests, the Pharisees, they want to kill Jesus for it because he did it on the Sabbath day. So they see this miracle, but they're not convinced. So this is a clue as to why God doesn't just prove his existence with miracles all the time, is because miracles aren't going to be convincing for people like the Pharisees, who it says in the gospel have hard hearts. So only if you're already open to God, only if you're already open to a relationship with God, is a miracle going to be convincing for you. Really, ultimately, a relationship with God is what's going to be convincing for you, not some sort of grand miracle. Okay, you can think of this like, why do your parents love you? How do you know that your parents love you? How have they convinced you of that? Well, it's not with some great big birthday present they got you once. It's not like, oh, they bought me a car on my 16th birthday. They must have loved me. It's the daily relationship that convinces you that they love you. And this we're not going to go over. This is a challenge essay. This will be an option. If you are a really good writer, if you normally get A's on your essays and you want to challenge yourself and really impress me, this is the one I want you to prepare for rather than these three. And I want you to read the letter of James in the Bible, chapters 1 and 2. It's about our faith and our works, meaning the actions that we do to express our faith. And I want you to think about this question: why are one's actions an important parts of one's faith, and how does this passage tell us that? So I want you to prepare that if you're up for this challenge. Now, again, I would recommend this only for people who are confident in their writing ability and are up for a challenge and really want to impress me. That will be an option. But for most people, I would prepare for these three. Okay? Good luck. And here are some tips for writing essays. Make sure you answer the whole question. Don't ever leave anything blank. And don't ever just list or bullet point your essays. They have to be in sentences and paragraphs. All right, well, good luck with your test.